At dawn, 2 armed riders crested the hill, smirking as they pointed their guns at the widow's porch, demanding the runaway bride hiding inside. Sam Turner, once broken by grief, stepped forward with nothing but a shotgun, and a town behind him. The air was ice. No one blinked. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The rain lashed sideways across the valley as Sam stood frozen, the door half open, framing the stranger like a memory he hadn't earned. The lantern in the hallway behind him cast a soft gold against her wet skin, and for a heartbeat, she didn't seem quite real. She was young, but not fragile. Her hair clung to her face in dark, tangled ribbons, and her lips trembled. Not from the cold, Sam sensed, but from something deeper, more primal, the kind of fear that didn't start tonight. Her eyes searched his, not pleading, but bracing, like she'd already heard no too many times in too many towns. Sam didn't ask where she came from or how far she'd walked through the storm. He simply stepped aside. She crossed the threshold like a deer unsure of a trap, and the moment she did, the air in the house changed, as if the walls themselves had been waiting for a voice besides his. He fetched a towel from the cabinet and handed it to her without a word. She took it with a nod, her hands raw and scraped, fingers trembling slightly as she clutched the coarse fabric. "I'll dry by the stove," she murmured, as if her presence needed permission to linger. He nodded. "Spare rooms at the end of the hall. Sheets are clean." Her smile was a flicker, barely there, and gone before it could settle. Sam moved back to his chair on the porch, though he left the door open now, the glow from inside pooling at his feet like spilled honey. He didn't want to close her out. Not yet. The rocking chair creaked under his weight as the storm whistled through the eaves, and for the first time in months, he wasn't thinking about numbers on paper or cows he couldn't afford to feed. He was thinking about how that girl had looked when she said, "please," like the word had teeth, like it hurt to say. Inside, he could hear her moving. Soft footsteps, the quiet clink of the kettle. She was already warming the place, somehow. Not like Miriam had. Miriam was all laughter and sunrise, but in a different way, like a fire that took its time to catch. Outside, the fields drank in the storm. Inside, Samuel Turner sat in silence, a second cup already on the table. The morning after the sheriff's visit dawned sharp and brittle, the kind of cold that cracked the topsoil and made breath hang like smoke in the air. Rose didn't come in for breakfast. Sam found her outside, hunched over a feed sack on the barn's back step, her fingers working fast and rough, repurposing a strip of burlap into something that might have been a satchel strap or might have been a distraction. She looked up only when he cleared his throat. The bruising near her collarbone had started to fade, but not fast enough. It peeked out from under her shirt like a cruel signature someone had scrawled and left behind. She tugged the collar closed without thinking. He held out a tin cup. "It's strong," he said. "Not much left of the sugar." She nodded once and took it with both hands, fingers wrapping around the warmth as though it might anchor her. "You ever have folks come out here looking for trouble?" Sam shrugged. "Had coyotes take a lamb once. Neighbor tried to fence off my creek a while back." A pause. "Nobody's ever come for someone else." She sipped the coffee, grimaced, then took another. "If they come, it'll be more than one, and they'll carry papers and guns and smiles they don't mean." Her voice was quiet but not soft. It had weight in it. "You telling me to send you on?" he asked, not unkindly. She looked down into the cup. "No, just making sure you know what you've opened your door to." Sam didn't reply right away. His gaze wandered across the fields, what was left of them. The wind had stripped the grass to yellow wire, and the barn's weathered boards creaked like old bones in the breeze. "I've lived with worse," he said finally. "Grief doesn't knock before it moves in. Least you did." She gave a bitter little smile at that. Didn't have much choice. Door was the only one open. They sat in silence after that, side by side on the step like a portrait of two lives paused. The barn cat slunk past and nestled near her hip. She didn't pet it, just let it stay. And in that silence, something softened. Not forgiveness, not yet, and not safety, but something that felt a little like it belonged. Neither of them named it. They just let it sit between them, unspoken and true. The air turned softer as the days stretched longer, but it wasn't spring, not yet. It was that odd in-between time when the soil still held the memory of frost, but the sun lingered just a little later each evening, as if reconsidering its distance. And on the Turner Ranch, something stubborn and unseen had started to push through the cracks. Sam noticed it first in the porch rail. The wood he'd meant to tear down had been patched with care, sanded smooth, and nailed tight with repurposed brass tacks from an old drawer. He ran his hand along it one morning and found it warm from the early sun, steady beneath his fingers. He didn't mention it. He just brought out 2 cups instead of 1. In the kitchen, Rose moved like someone who'd spent years apologizing for her space. She cooked with quiet precision, her eyes flicking between flame and flour, measuring by instinct, not habit. She didn't hum, she didn't chatter, but when she slid the pan of biscuits from the oven, golden, uneven, slightly burnt at the edges, Sam nearly wept. "Just like hers," he said, though they weren't. They ate them out on the porch, saying nothing. Crumbs caught in his beard. Butter melted down her wrist. Neither wiped it away. Rose began to collect things. Bent nails from the barn floor, worn cloth from an old rocking chair, buttons too big for anything useful. One night, Sam walked past the sitting room and saw her stitching under the low firelight, her hands working in quiet rhythm. It wasn't mending. It was intention. A quilt, taking shape slowly, each square a silent defiance against disappearance. The corner piece bore a strip of red flannel he recognized from his old hunting shirt. The middle square was cut from the checkered apron Miriam used to wear every Sunday after church. Sam stood there longer than he meant to, watching Rose feed thread through time. Later, as the wind rattled the loose shutters and the moon cracked through the window glass, he said, almost to himself, "I don't have anything left to give you." Rose didn't pause in her work. "You let me stay," she said. "You let me exist without flinching. That's not nothing." Sam leaned back, the chair creaking under him like it always did, and for the first time since the cancer, he didn't feel like a man undone, not healed, not whole, but anchored somehow, as if the house and the hands inside it had remembered something he'd forgotten. The sun hadn't yet broken the ridge when the hooves came, sharp, deliberate, a drumbeat on the frozen dirt. Sam had felt them before he heard them, the way a man does when trouble crosses old ground. He'd been sitting at the kitchen table, lacing his boots in silence, steam rising off the chipped mug of coffee at his elbow. The fire had burned low. So had his nerves. He didn't wake Rose. She was already up, standing by the window, one hand resting lightly on the curtain. Her face held no fear, just a quiet, worn-out knowing, like a woman who'd waited her whole life for someone to either claim or kill her, and still wasn't sure which was the mercy. Sam stepped out first, the cold biting through his coat like it meant to draw blood. The 2 riders pulled up 10 paces from the porch, their horses pawing at the dust, breath fogging in the air. Both men wore guns like second skins, low on the hip, eager. The one on the left had a scar that ran from cheek to jaw like a brand. The other wore a grin too wide for the occasion. "You harboring her?" the grinner asked, voice syrupy and smug. Sam didn't blink. "She's under my roof," he said. "That's all you need to know." "She's wanted," the scarred one added. "Runaway Bride, Stole a wedding. Broke a contract. Contracts don't bleed, Sam replied. But she did. They chuckled then, slow and mean. The grinner spat. This ain't your fight, old man. Step aside. Sam took one step forward and raised his voice, not loud, but solid. She's got more decency in her than both of you stacked. And this ranch, it's not for sale. Not to men, not to money, not to cowards. They laughed again, until the creak of leather and the shuffle of boots behind Sam turned their eyes. The town had gathered. Quietly, like wheat bending before the wind. The schoolteacher, arms crossed over her shawl. The storekeeper with his thick apron still tied at the waist. A pair of old ranch hands, faces hard and unreadable. And last, Sheriff Haynes, silver badge dull in the weak light, one hand resting easy on his belt. She's family now, he said. And out here, we protect our own. The riders' smiles soured. They didn't argue. Men like them thrived on silence and fear, and today they had neither. With a twitch of reins, they turned their horses and vanished into the dawn they'd brought with them. Behind Sam, no one cheered. No one had to. What mattered had already been said. By presence, by choice, by standing firm. Inside the house, Rose let the curtain fall. Her hands were steady now. On the table behind her sat a folded piece of fabric, half quilted, stitched with sunflowers, waiting